My name is Madeline, and I am the software product manager at Scandidose. And I'm here today with Anneli, one of our sales reps. So Anneli has a long experience with treatment planning and dose calculation in radiotherapy. And she will be doing a presentation for you guys today while I'll be doing a demo. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass this over to Anneli and let her get started.
Very good. Thank you, Madeleine. The topic today is Delta4 Insight, our new secondary dose calculation software for verification, the treatment planning system. So what is Insight and how does it fit into your QA program that you have today? Well, today you are probably already doing pre-treatment plan verification using a QA device such as the Delta4 Phantom Plus, or even motion management with the Hexamotion. Some of you are also measuring in vivo using a device such as the Delta4 Discover, and by these you are checking the plan delivery. But what about the dose that you have agreed to treating the patient with? So to complete the full QA program in your clinic to validate also the dose generated on the patient, you need a secondary dose calculation. And of course, we want to offer you Delta4 Insight for this purpose. So why do we need to do QA both with the Phantom measurements and the dose calculation? Well, look at the following. The Delta4 Phantom Plus is a device that can measure if the LINAC is able to deliver the plan created on the patient and delivering it correctly. And also if the dose calculated by the TPS on the Phantom is the same as the measured dose on the Phantom. But Delta4 Insight will verify if the dose that the TPS calculated on the patient is correct. It's also able to judge if the plan is a good plan for the patient. So this cannot be detected by measuring in a Phantom. So to actually validate the plan that you as doctors and physicists and dose planners agreed to treat the patient with, you need to have a secondary calculation on this same data. But what is the likeliness that we actually find an error? Well, we are checking the TPS results. And the TPS is consisting of a large amount of code written by humans, and humans make errors, right? This report that we dug out is AAPM Task Group 53, where they quote another journal article that a modern planning system may be the result of 30 to 50 person years of work consisting of 1 million lines of code or more. Even well-designed and implemented software systems will usually contain at least one software error in every 100 to 1,000 lines of code. Now, this article is quite old. It's even from the 1990s, so imagine there has been a lot of development on the TPS systems since then. But by pure logics, the systems have become more advanced, more code. It will always have a certain risk of errors in the code. A bit more fresh from the AAPM is the task group 219, which in 2021 came out with a report regarding independent calculation-based dose or MU verification for IMRT. And this report came to the conclusion to recommend a combination of measurements and calculations to be able to catch errors in treatment planning, in the treatment information transfer and also the treatment delivery. So what do we offer you with Insight? The most important part of a secondary dose calculation software is, of course, the dose calculation algorithm. And Insight has Monte Carlo. Our algorithm is based on GANT4, which is a high accuracy general purpose Monte Carlo algorithm. This algorithm is benchmarked against another general purpose Monte Carlo called the EGS, also against the reference algorithms in the treatment planning systems which have Monte Carlo or similar algorithms. And of course also against measurements. The software was released in its first version about a year ago, and now we have found a reference journal article from Borke et al., which have evaluated our software or our algorithm. Preliminary evaluation of a novel secondary check tool for intensity modulated radiotherapy treatment planning. They have gone through 20 clinical IMRT or VMAT plans with the 3% 2 millimeter gamma criteria against the measurements and against the two algorithms found in the Eclipse variant system. And some quotes from this is an excellent agreement between calculations and off-axis measurements is found. And also the Delta4 Insight may provide a useful independent secondary dose verification system for IMRT VMAT plans, complementing the traditional global QA protocols. So which algorithm is necessary in a secondary dose calculation? Well, to be able to have a qualitative check of a dose calculated, you need to have an algorithm that is equal or better than the algorithm that you are indeed checking. So the algorithm that you have in your treatment planning system must serve as a baseline for your choice of secondary dose calculation. The three main treatment planning systems out there today all have Monte Carlo or Monte Carlo-like algorithms, like the linear Boltzmann transport, which means that most clinics today either already have Monte Carlo or are soon going to start planning with Monte Carlo algorithms. And for this reason, it will be necessary to have a similarly accurate algorithm in your secondary dose check. Secondly, the algorithm that you use should, of course, be independent from the one that you are checking. So Delta4 Insight is completely Linac and TPS vendor independent, but also the algorithm itself is independent. It is based on GANT4, it's a proprietary algorithm, and the algorithms that you will find in none of the algorithms that you find in the treatment planning systems listed here have a GANT4 based Monte Carlo algorithm. So what else is important besides the algorithm itself? Well, it should be easy to use the system, and Insight is a fully integrated part of the Delta4 software. So if you're a current Delta4 user, You'll find it very easy. You'll find the dose calculated in the same list where you find your measured plans. This also makes the learning curve very, very quick for current users. Yes. It should also be effortless, basically. Time is expensive nowadays, and the amount of physicists available to check plans is limited in many clinics. So Delta4 Insight is actually completely automatic. It will import the patient data. It's going to start the Monte Carlo calculation, evaluate the results, give you instant display of pass or fail results, and save them all to the Delta4 database. So this happens behind the scenes under the hood completely automatically. So all you have to do is open up the patient once you have your time set off for QA. Finally, the system should be user-friendly and customizable. The convergence criteria in the Monte Carlo calculation is user selectable. So you are free to make the trade-off between calculation time and relative error in the calculation. So it best suits your workflow. For the commissioning, you can define further independency in the system. So the WPM recommendation is to use data independent from the data you used in your treatment planning system. So we allow either data measured for your TPS, but preferably data measured specifically for Delta4 Insight. But another very good and popular option is to use golden data, which will also give you a good independency from other measured data. The system is also customizable in terms of naming structures for ROIs. You can also customize your target plan objectives according to your clinical practice. And the gamma criteria is user selectable and also modifiable on the run. So when you are checking your plans and you realize, okay, I want to check another gamma, you can just change the settings as you validate your plan. And with that said, I will hand over to Madeleine for a demo.
Perfect. So I hope everybody can hear me and see my screen. And I will demo this software for you now that you've heard about it. As was mentioned in the presentation, the Delta4 Insight software is fully integrated in the regular Delta4 software. So those of you who have previously been using Delta4, you will recognize the interface. So this starting page is the same one as used by the regular Delta4 Insight, or sorry, by the regular Delta4 software. But so what I would do to use Delta4 Insight is that I would start by opening my calculation overview or my Open Insight patient dialog. This dialog gives me an overview of all of the patients I've calculated with Insight during whatever time set in this little box right here. What I can see is that it gives me a patient ID name, plan name, and calculation date, as well as some quick overview results. I get results from the automatic evaluation of clinical goals that the software does, both for target and organ risk. And I also get the result, the pass and fail, for the gamma evaluation between the calculated Insight dose and the TPS dose. It's also going to write out the gamma pass rate, and if the patient has been, or the calculation has been approved in the system, I also get a symbol for that. So this is a really good way of just looking at what's been done in the clinic. But if I want to examine something more closely, I can just open it via this dialog, just double click on something. So I'm selecting a patient here, and it's opening it up in the regular Delta4 software. And some of this information you're going to recognize from our regular software. So to my left, I have this patient overview that gives me a patient ID and name and all of the plans belonging to this patient. And if this patient has also been measured with the Phantom, the measurement information is in the same view and I can access it right through here. But now we're looking at an insight calculation. So what I can see is just immediately I get the same symbols as in the Open Insight patient dialog, the quick overview of the evaluation that has been done. And then right underneath, I'm presented with the clinical goals for this patient. So you see this more thickish gray line. Everything above that is the plan objectives or clinical goals for target structures, and everything below is for organs at risk. So if all of these goals have been passed, this symbol is going to be green. Same goes for the organs at risk. And then to the right of the clinical goals, I get dose volume histograms. I can view them for all of the structures that were outlined during treatment planning. If I want to add something to the TPS, to the dose volume histogram, I can just do that. Per default, I'm only displayed with the structures that have clinical goals, so that I won't see a bunch of help structures and non-clinical structures, but I can still display everything that I want to. It's also interactable, or yeah, so if I want to display only one of the curves, I can do that. If I want to change some colorings, show particular structures, I can just do that and play around with this to find the information I need. I also have this gamma symbol that gives me the results of the gamma evaluation. If I hover over it, I can see the gamma pass rate and also the criteria that was used. And if I want to, I can right click and open the recalculate insight gamma. This box is allowing me to look at gamma for a bunch of different criterion. So you might be interested in both what happens with this patient if the gamma criteria is set to 3%, 3 millimeters, but also what happens with 2%, 2 millimeters. Then you're able to display it in here, and you can change this number and calculate whatever gamma pass rates you want to. So that is what is represented by the color of the gamma symbol. I have another tab up here called Patient View. If I click on Patient View, I get to see the insight dose, the TPS dose, and the difference between the two of them displayed over the patient CT. So just like our other graphs and pictures, it's all, you can interact with it, you can change what picture to view, you can view them in full size, you can zoom in them. Yeah, you'll understand. You'll be able to scroll through the slices using just your arrow keys or your mouse wheel, just like you're probably used to doing in any kind of treatment planning system or other system. You can display all of the structures outlined during treatment planning. So any deviations you find, you can see where they are in relation to important structures. It's also possible to look at point doses. So if I click somewhere using the cursor, I get the coordinates for the position I selected and also the Insight TPS dose and the difference between the two of them as point doses. I can also see it in real time if I just move the mouse sort of over the dose distributions. Okay, so once I'm done with that and I've looked at all the data, I can select if I'm happy with this calculation and if I want to approve the plan. Let's say that I am. In that case, I just simply right-click on my approval symbol and I select accepted. You can also select rejected if I'm not happy with it. So that's that. I'm done with the analysis. And after that, I might want to create a report from this calculation. In that case, I hit the print icon and I'm able to create a report of all of the results. I can select a couple of different things to include in the report, and I can either just print this using a regular printer if I want to keep it in a folder somewhere, or if I want to keep it electronically, I would just print it using a PDF printer. If you want to continue your analysis outside the Insight software, you're also able to right-click on a plan and export the Insight dose. This is going to export the calculated Monte Carlo dose on the DICOM format, together with the DICOM plan and all of the CT slices and structure sets. And you can just import this into either back into your TPS or into some other third-party software for dose analysis. So if you want to perform any other analysis than what you can do in the software. It's also possible to automatically export everything you've calculated to a set location on the hospital network if you prefer to do that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to show.
Yes, and thank you all for taking the time to listen to this webinar.